Hello and welcome to SacTown Talks. Today we have Senator Bill Dodd from the 3rd Senate District joining us today. Bill, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
It's great to be here. You know, it's last couple of times I've been in the studio, and here we are with this COVID-19 thing, just doing it on Zoom.
You're looking great. You know, the COVID crisis has really done well for you. Really enjoying the new one, Bill. A big week for you this week. On Tuesday you had the sports betting hearing. For there not being any sports on, that was high drama. Can you kind of take us through the hearing and kind of, the vote and kind of how you felt? And, did you know you had to win the whole time?
I knew going in that I had the votes. But look at the tribes are a very formidable, powerful group, and they made their feelings and their wishes known, let's just put it that way, to some of my members that changed their mind or didn't support it. But look at the end of the day, we were able to prevail 9-3. Essentially, I don't think we're really that far apart. I think that there's the issue between, first of all, there's a sports betting issue. And I think with COVID-19, anytime the legislature can find something that in a very short time frame could make, for the state of California, for the taxpayers, $500 to $800 million, we've got to look at those things. And that's one of the things we're looking squarely at. At the same time, we understand the constitutional issues surrounding, just gaming in general and the rights that the tribes have. And, one of the things that I think got lost in this whole thing because of COVID-19, because of our inability to meet face-to-face, some of the tribal members just felt that we were surprising them with this. And this was all so new. And even some members did. Well, as you know, personally, we've been working on this for some time. Chairman Gray and I have made it a goal of ours to stop this constant push-pull between the tribes and the card rooms. So sports betting aside, we also put in the provisions that would legalize once and for all the type of games that the card rooms play. Now, what was in that bill on Tuesday and what's going to be in that bill when it comes up again on the floor are more than likely going to be significantly different. But not so significantly different, in my view, than what Governor Brown proposed a couple of years ago. For example, that was we've had a number of potential type of settlements, and I just think clarifying the games in the Constitution that the card rooms can play is protection for the tribes. It's also protection in a way for the card rooms, but for 30 years, these games have been more than likely been played on, and no attorney general has overruled them. No courts have overruled them. But at the end of the day, they still may not meet the test of the state constitution. With that in mind, we think that clarifying those rules and regulations help the tribes as much as it helps the card room. So I think it's in the legislative interest, the interest of the state of California, not to continue to have these legal battles, more ballot initiatives, and more legislative fights in the Senate and the Assembly by getting a master deal. Sorry that was so long-winded.
Those are the answers we like, Bill. There was a very passionate testimony from both sides, but especially the tribal side expressing anger and frustration over the card room issue. And it was kind of interesting. It was a hearing about sports wagering, but we heard little to nothing about sports wagering. It was much more about this protracted issue between the card rooms and the tribes. Have you heard feedback from the tribes regarding sports betting and kind of what they would like to see on that issue, and irrespective of the card room issue?
Well, of course, they had their own ballot initiative that they filed for. I think it was perhaps the last week in December. I can't remember when, but it was just this year. And in that, they asked for brick and mortar sports betting, along with allowing for the horse tracks to do sports betting as well. but they only want it at the brick and mortar and not online. Well, if it's at the brick and mortar because of, that's on sovereign land, that cannot be taxed. So when you do bricks and mortar only, the benefit to the state is just what the tax is going to do. And it's at maybe $10 million, maybe more, tens of millions of dollars. But if we do it online, that's about 80 to 85% of the total sports book handle, meaning the total amount bet online would be about 80% or more. And we would raise, the first year, arguably 200 to 300 million, thereafter 500 to 800 million. And so, we just really made it clear that not having sports betting online is just, it's just, we're not going to go there. But I think we need to be clear and understand why they're concerned about that. And look, I think it's understandable for me that they want to be able to control all the online, what's happening there, because down the line, we've had poker fights and everything in the past, and I understand their reasoning for being very, very circumspect and careful about that. And we're working with them right now to try, to come up with a possible solution that will protect their rights in this area.
The hearing on Tuesday was, I guess, a unique scenario. Since you guys have come back into session, there's been new protocols, new ways to, I guess, do your committee hearings. Can you kind of bring us through on, kind of talk to us about how it's been coming back to the Senate with these new, I guess, social distancing and health requirements?
Yeah, first of all, I think the Senate has done, our Senate staff has just done an amazing job. I've participated in probably a half a dozen, maybe online meetings. And, it's a little clunky, getting the calls online. It was especially, I think disconcerting for some, people not to be able to testify in person, to only give their name, rank, and serial number, so to speak, and whether they're for it or against it. The rules are the rules just because, just because of the COVID-19 and our safety statutes and what we have, in the Capitol. But I believe it serves the purpose. I believe we are getting the public input that we need, and we're, doing the people's work. So I would much prefer to do everything like we did in the past. But hopefully, we come out of this thing next year at this time or sooner and back to normal.
Last week we had your counterpart in the Assembly, Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, on the show, and she was talking about the number of disasters your district has gone through the last couple of years with the fires and now COVID-19, about how you guys are kind of battle tested. Can you kind of talk about, I guess, your emergency response preparations in your district and how you guys were handling the COVID crisis?
Yeah, first of all, we handle a lot of the same areas. Cecilia and I handle a lot of the same areas. But just in the community of Napa, for example, alone, since 2014, they've had fires, floods, a major earthquake, a major fire, one of the biggest fires ever in the state of California, and massive PSPS's, public safety power shutoffs, like nobody has ever seen. And the toll it's taken really on our citizens, but in particular, small business, and to now have COVID-19 layered over that is just, and then let's face it, that's not just Napa, that's everywhere. But everywhere through my district has had earthquakes, fires, and now this COVID-19. So yeah, would like, our emergency, well, I've really been impressed with all the counties. If you take a look at Sonoma County, Solano County, Napa County, Contra Costa, all the emergency teams have really done a phenomenal job. And then when you think about what I just told you, the California Office of Emergency Services, Mark Ghilarducci's team, I mean, they have been involved. I don't think there's ever been a 5-year period where Cal OES has had so much on their plate so consistently in the history of the state of California. And they're just operating at a high level.
Recently, you guys came to a budget, I guess, a budget agreement with the Assembly, leveling out Governor Newsom's $54 billion deficit. I know, prior to this, crisis, a lot of people had some big plans with the budget and the extra spending. I guess with your district in particular needing funding for, wildfires and issues that's happened in the past few years, I guess how is your district going to fare in the budget that you guys just presented?
Well, those areas, I think if they're spending on COVID-19, spending on fires, PSPSs, homelessness, and affordable housing, you're probably okay. But let's face it, with this federal money that came in so far, the 3 different rounds of it, I represent almost 1 million people, and 900,000 of my people live in a city or county that's less than 500,000 people, and they have yet to receive any funds whatsoever. And that's a real critical problem. So we're trying to work out that in the budget. Then we all know the next package, hopefully that comes from the feds at some point in time in the near future, hopefully. I don't think it's going to be in the next 30 or 60 days, but that will be telling on how we do as a state going forward.
A large part of your district relies a lot on tourism and hospitality. Obviously, they were, really hurting these last few months. Today, the governor announced kind of stage 3 openings guidelines for some of these businesses. Can you kind of explain, I guess, how these businesses are going to recover and, how them moving forward, I guess, with this crisis is going to look?
I think we're going to have a situation where we're going to see wineries start opening, hotels start opening in the next week or 2. It's going to be a tough climb because people have to feel safe, first and foremost, if they're going to start traveling, staying in hotels. I think that I was on a call today in the Sonoma Tourism Board. Next Thursday, I'm on with the Napa Tourism Board. I've been on before. And, they know it's not going to be international tourists. They know it's probably not going to be tourist state, even statewide or even the region. They're breaking it down to get day trippers. I think that's really going to be their thought process, getting people to stay a night or 2 nights coming from the state of California and then branch out regionally. And then, the United States, they've got a pretty complete plan. They're very, very sophisticated. And if anybody can do it and come back, I'm confident that 2 great wine industry communities, if you will, the Napa and Sonoma areas, as they go, I think, frankly, so goes the rest of the state.
I know a lot of small businesses, I guess, especially restaurants, have had a tough time paying their rent or keeping up, and a lot of them has closed. I guess, what has the impact been on your region, restaurant-wise? You have some of the best restaurants in the state. Are they able to keep afloat, or are you seeing businesses shut down?
Well, we think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to lose. There's going to be a lot of casualties. And that's not just in Napa. That's all throughout Northern California and more than likely Southern California. I've seen where we've had landlords that have just bent over backwards to help their tenants and make sure that they're really smart. Because at the end of the day, going out and finding another tenant, in any short order, and then tenant improvements they're going to have to pay, they're far smarter to get in and cut a deal and maybe not get all their money, but to cut a deal that you're going to get all your money over time and keep the same tenant in there. This is not something where they misforecasted their sales and they just screwed up or did something wrong. This COVID-19 is hitting everybody equally. Well, not everybody equally, but you know what I'm saying? It's right. Almost everybody's going to be a casualty to COVID-19 in one way, shape, or form. But through no fault of their own, they're in this predicament. So I'm really encouraging, our landlords to continue doing what I've heard a lot of them have. But there's a few poster children, I should say, of how not to do it. Give me my money. The rent's due. I need my money now. I'm not negotiating. That's no bueno. We can't have that.
Right. Earlier in the year, you were coming off of budget surpluses. Legislators had big plans to move pieces of legislation, and about a month ago, they were asked to pare their legislative package down. Can you kind of tell us, I guess, how your legislative package has changed through the year, and what it looks like today?
I think I had something on the order of 18 to 20 bills when this COVID-19 started. Really good package. We're pared down now, I think, to 7 or 8, maybe 6. It was tough. But, we were told, and not everybody's done it, but we were told, look at those 4 areas I talked to you about before: PSPSs, wildfire, affordable housing, homelessness, and COVID-19. If your bill has any money that's going to take a budget thing, probably don't bring it up. If it's not one of those things, it's probably not a high priority, don't bring it up. So we really tried and pushed and pulled here, and my staff did a great job. And we've got ours down, and I'm telling you, the Senate overall is way down. Just a little hint to the state assembly. I hope you do the same thing.
Just the other day I had a power outage at my house, and it was tough because you're supposed to work at home. You got the kids at home; they're relying on using their tablets, and you kind of forget about how much you rely on power. Kind of an issue that was last year, earlier this year, was PG&E, their bankruptcy, the power shutoffs you mentioned earlier. I guess how prepared are we for this upcoming summer and this fall for stable, reliable power?
Well, Jared, I'm glad you brought up, because we just had a hearing yesterday in the Capitol, a long hearing where we heard from the California Public Utilities Commission and all 3 of the major investor-owned utilities, and then a consumer watchdog on in this area. What we heard was not perfect, but I'm telling you, I believe we have a stronger California Public Utilities Commission in this area. Some of the work that they've done in the last year really, is paying off. I believe they're on it. I believe that, and they believe. And so I think it's like the utilities are doing a much better job. Is it 100% of where we need to be yet? No. That's one thing that was very, very clear to me. But, in the face of all these, issues and everything that we have, going on with COVID-19, for us to hear the positive comments that were made, even, for example, with PG&E, is really heartwarming, frankly, because it's just been such a, can I say on this?
Yeah, we could put a children's warning label on it, right?
Yeah, it's children's warning. But at any rate, it has. And so hopefully and I know hope isn't a strategy, but at the end of the day, they made commitments that, perhaps the amount of outages will be down by about a third, the duration, perhaps maybe even by half. But they've got a lot of work to do, and I'm just, hoping that they stick with their commitment to get that done.
We were just talking about, the COVID crisis. We've just had a series of social unrest, rioting, looting. The last thing we need, they just had an earthquake in LA, and we were just kind of talking, the last thing we need is another crisis on top of a crisis. You've worked a lot on wildfire prevention these last couple of years. Kind of what's being done to ensure that we don't have another fire this year, and to ensure, I guess, we don't have another crisis?
None of the bills that we've ran, and I probably run in this area, I don't even remember, maybe 8 bills already, plus the bills I've got this year, in this area, and other legislators, both in the Senate and the Assembly, have run other bills, and none of them all by themselves is a silver bullet, but all of them put together is like a patchwork, quilt that really is working. So some of the things that we're doing is making sure we have reduced fuels in our wildland areas, that we're providing grants for fire breaks, that we're pre-positioning assets during these times to make sure that when you have windy days, that Cal Fire or the city fires, they're out more towards the hinterlands where these fires can start, that we've got better data, weather stations, and that measure all the different components of what really makes, when we have these red flag warnings, that are the key ingredients. Buying new fire equipment, budgeting for new employees, putting in these Nighthawk helicopters that can actually go out and fight fires at night. We've never had that capability. Bringing in new planes, big, huge, retired military planes that can help, bomb those things as well. And putting together a new statewide, as I did in a bill, if you will, intelligence center from the state of California that takes all these weather stations from the utilities, from universities, photographic imagery that is taking pictures so we can detect flames and smoke and all those things. These are all things that I think are working. Also, making sure that when we do have it, since we get on it real soon, to make sure that we have the best type of emergency warning service that we possibly can. We know that whether you were a citizen or a tourist in a lot of these areas, the word didn't really get out to people for evacuation. It was not smooth. We have to do a better job, and I'm very confident that that's another item that we've done that will help in the future if we do it, because we're never going to have a situation where we're not going to have fires. But one of the things that all the fire professionals tell me, that once, if we get people and machinery, if you will, to the fire, the sooner we can get them there, the sooner it can be put out. What's happened in these past, fires, we all know that climate change is creating the different conditions, more fuels, bigger winds, lower humidities. But if we get out there and attack the fire early and don't give it that big head start that it's gotten almost every single time, whether it was the Atlas fire, the Tubbs fire, or the camp fires up in Butte County, or the Carr fire, that's what happened. It just got going, and we didn't get on it, anywhere near quickly enough and with enough ammo.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you brought up. I guess the communication and coordination amongst agencies and with the residents as well. One issue that's been brought up recently is, I guess, a lack of broadband access across these rural areas. I guess, what's being done to ensure that, I guess, more of your remote and rural areas are gaining access to broadband, so I guess we can increase communications?
Jared, not enough. I mean, and we not only see it when we have these big disasters, and it's hard for even our emergency services to coordinate with each other, let alone, hey, I think my mom's in that fire, I need to call her, and
Right.
no cell service. So we've been working on things with the telecommunications company. They don't like to be regulated. There's a number of bills this year on that issue. But look, we're also seeing this because of the COVID-19 situation and the distance learning. If you're in the middle of a city where there's plenty of broadband, you're all good to get on the Zoom call with your kid's class. But boy, if you live, in the hinterland somewhere, or, up in, North Yolo County, or you live in a number of different places in Napa and in Sonoma County, or even in southeastern Solano County, you don't have it. And so it's very, very difficult for those students that live out there to be able to do the online. So if there's ever a critical time where we've got to figure out solutions, it's now. Unfortunately, it's a money game, right? That's right. It. Just, you throw money at enough things, you can get things done. Well, when we're sitting fat, dumb, and happy with a $20 billion surplus, we're perhaps at a point where we're getting close. Now, this is a huge setback. We talked about the budget at the top of the show. Somewhere between $30 and $54 billion, depending upon whose estimates you agree with. That's it's going to make it very difficult.
Earlier we were talking about sheltering in place, kind of, the new normal in the legislature. I've seen you be on social media a little more lately, doing nightly, I guess, was it Twitter or YouTube or Instagram videos? And I guess how during this period, you're usually out and about, very in person. meeting people directly. I guess, how are you reaching out to your constituents in this crisis and keeping open lines of communication with everyone?
Well, I think, doing shows like this, podcasts, I mean, even locally, done a number of those. We've had a number of town halls online that had proven to be really effective. But then, moreover, what I've been doing a lot of is, calling up our educational leaders, calling up our sheriffs, our police chiefs, being in communication with nonprofits, our tourism industries, and just, I've got an incredible team that it seems to be on every single issue. And I'm so grateful. A lot of legislators, I think, thinks that it begins and ends with them, period. And that's not casting aspersions. I've lived a little bit longer, had experience in business and nonprofits. And if you don't have a good team around you, you are completely, totally ineffective and not able to reach the limits of what you possibly can do. And my team, both in the district and in the Capitol, are just absolutely incredible.
One thing you mentioned, I guess, is the use of, video and digital. Normally you'd be going to a lot of events, a lot of in-person functions. Do you find that you're, I guess, more efficient or getting more done during this crisis, given that you have, I guess, more time to reach out to people?
I think so, particularly in a district that I serve in. That's, I go from, Rohnert Park. For those that don't know where Rohnert Park is, imagine Santa Rosa, because I go right to the Santa Rosa border,
right, all
the way to North Yolo County, and then to the south to the Delta, Sacramento County. So, I mean, it is a big district. So it is inefficient in many cases where I'm going, to a land trust event in Yolo County, or to a Rotary Club meeting in Rohnert Park, or a crab feed in Pleasant Hill, just any number of things. You're on the road probably each way as long as you're at the event. So that's not very efficient. And then, hopefully what you do is you combine 2 or 3, sometimes even ridiculously 4 events in a night. I can tell you, my wife, I never thought she really liked to see me that much, but I think she likes this way a lot better.
Oh, you're so manly, look at all that testosterone.
Well, no, I'm home for the grandkids too. And that's been for a long time. For about the first 6 weeks, we were sheltered in place, and without the grandkids, we would see them outside the window. They'd come up and drive up, and as we all knew that we were safe and better, we're all the herd again. And so it's really been great getting to know them, because let's face it, most of the time they're around, I'm not home. Right. And it really makes you feel for me, for all those senators and assembly members that are young and have young kids at home, particularly if they have to commute by airplane up and down the state. So it's given me new appreciation for, the commitment they have to the people of the state of California and their district.
No, well said, well said. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Bill. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
I think we've covered the waterfront, Jared. I really appreciate you inviting me on. This is something, that there's going to be some wrinkles of how we deal with things. It creates communication issues that we haven't seen, like even in this sports event. I think there's some, communications issue. What we've got to do is pick up the phone a little bit more now and talk to people, face to face, maybe not on camera, but we'll get through this together. I'm very, very confident, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be on with you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and hope to have you on again. Have a good week.
Love it.
Thanks.
All right. Take care. You too.
Are all dreamers.